Howdy freeze dryers, welcome back to the freeze drying community. One of the things that we set out to do with the freeze drying community is not only just do recipes for freeze dryers and showing tips and tricks, but we also like to educate the freeze drying community just on really everything freeze drying. So we've set out to start a new series of videos, which is going to be the freeze dryer Q&A videos, covering all kinds of freeze drying topics, starting with the beginner's basics for freeze drying all the way up into advanced freeze drying. So before I do that, let me introduce myself if you have never watched one of my videos. I am Brian. I have run the freeze drying community and various other freeze drying YouTube channels since 2017 when I started doing freeze drying. And within that time frame, we have now done hundreds and hundreds of freeze drying videos. We've created products for the freeze dryer to streamline the entire freeze drying process. We've educated lots of freeze dryers, hopefully in the process, and we've now done thousands of batches from our freeze drying perspective, and we like to share that perspective and our experience with you. Let's get started on our first question. Let's start off with an easy one. What foods can I freeze dry? This is a really interesting question because if you would have asked me this question 5 years ago, my answer probably would have been quite a bit different than it is today. So today's answer is basically almost everything can be freeze dried if you give it some sort of modification. 5 years ago, we didn't think that high fats, high oils could be freeze dried, and that hasn't necessarily changed a whole lot. It can be freeze dried, it's just going to affect your storage length. My answer for today's freeze drying times would be probably stay away from high fats, high oils. That's not always the case. You can do some modifications to things. The biggest thing is going to be your food longevity for storage. Most things can freeze dry and be good for 20 to 25 years. That's not always the case with super high fats, super high oils. However, if they're mixed into other things with a recipe or something like that, sometimes you can get away with those longer storage times. And things like peanut butter or bacon, things that we thought were kind of no-nos a few years ago, we can now modify peanut butter, water it down, and freeze dry it that way. And people have been successfully freeze drying peanut butter now. Bacon, it's really just a matter of kind of mitigating the fat content. You can do that several different ways, but people are now being able to freeze dry bacon and higher fat meats like that. If you're a person who's going to try and do high fat or high oil type content foods, you just need to be aware of things going rancid or things just getting bad over time. You don't want to be consuming food that is just not properly freeze dried or just has not withstood the test of time. So just be very mindful when you do things like that. Another thing that is kind of hit and miss are high sugar content items. Candies are usually fine. Sometimes baked goods can puff up or explode in the freeze dryer. So really something that's high sugar is a lot of times just case by case basis. Sugar, in my experience, if it's mixed into a recipe, most of the time is okay. Even marshmallows and things like that are okay. You just need to really be aware more of the expanding inside of the freeze dryer and just not to overload your freeze dryer. Always leave a little bit of extra room for that expansion. Let's talk about some things that you can freeze dry. Fruits are always good, vegetables are always good, cooked meats in almost every case are good, candy is good, dairy in almost every case is good, and cooked meals are always a winner in my opinion, as long as you are being mindful of the high fat or high sugar, or both. And this question, along with basically every other question we're going to address in these videos, can definitely be expanded on and probably warrant their own video on their own. If you ever need to do extra research, there's a lot of great resources. We wrote a freeze drying handbook you can check out. We also have a Facebook group that's called the Freeze Drying Community Facebook group that you can use search functions, you can ask specific questions, or you can search older threads and older topics to really expand your knowledge on these individual questions or really any question you have in the future. Let's get to the next question. When I was preparing to make this video, I put a post out there asking for people's questions, and this was one that came up very, very often. It was, How do you know when your batch is done? This is a very important question because if your batch is not done, then your food and your time and your efforts have just been wasted. So what's the best way to tell if your freeze-dried food is done? There are several methods. There's not necessarily a right one, but we can go over many of the methods. My personal favorite is the weighing method. What that entails is you complete a freeze-drying batch, weigh your food when it's done, get that weight, add a little bit more time of drying time for maybe an hour to weigh it again. If there is no change in weight, then you know that the freeze dryer is not removing any more moisture from that food. If that weight is different, obviously it's going to be less because it's still removing water. If that weight is less than your first weight, there is still more moisture being removed. So I would keep adding dry time to that freeze drying cycle until you get an equal weight. So a surefire way to know that your freeze-dried food is done is when those weights are the exact same weight from the first measurement to when you weigh it after you've completed the extra dry time. If that weight is different, then you know you just need to keep repeating that cycle until those weights are the same weight on both. And if you want to go old school, you can just use your eyeballs and your sense of touch. That is a lot of times the best method by itself, because if you can see that it's dry and you can feel that it's completely dry, even breaking apart those thickest parts of your tray and it's dry and crumbly, you know your food is done. You can also pay attention to your mTOR reading, which is on your screen. It will be a lowercase m, capital TORR, whatever that reading is. You want it to be pretty much when it gets less than 200 mTOR, you know that food is just super dry, super crumbly. So I mentioned earlier that things have really changed in the last few years in freeze drying. A big contributor to that is just the amount of freeze dryers out there doing experiments, spreading knowledge. And one thing that we have figured out in the last few years is that some of the gadgets and things that I have recommended in the past, not necessarily the best way. I've used moisture meters, I've used FLIR infrared cameras and thermometers and things like that. If you use them correctly, they will work and they will show you cold spots. They can show you moisture spots and things like that. But really, I think the best surefire way is the weighing method. And if you pay attention to those mTORs during your freeze drying cycle, I think you're going to have a freeze drying product that is fully dry and will store and last for a very long time. And next question, to freeze or not to pre-freeze? The right answer, there is no right answer. Either one is totally acceptable. Pre-freezing is always an option and a completely optional thing to do. I really like to pre-freeze as much as possible for quite a few reasons. The biggest reason being that it will save some wear and tear on your freeze dryer, because your first cycle or process that your freeze dryer is going to do is get that temperature down of the food you put in down to a certain range. And if you're pre-freezing, you're going to already skip part of that pre-freezing, because if your deep freeze can get down to like 0 degrees, your food is already 0 degrees when you put it into the freeze dryer, so now it just has to go another 20 degrees cooler or whatever you have your freeze dryer set at, and it's skipping a big portion of that freezing cycle or portion process of the freeze drying process as a whole. We've also discovered in the recent years that pre-freezing can change the texture and the finished product of your freeze dried food as well, for the better. They will not expand as much as they would if they were just put into the freeze dryer warm or whatever. And this is a very individualized food question, so if you're looking to pre-freeze a specific type of food, I would definitely recommend getting on one of our other resources that we talked about earlier and maybe trying to figure out if that food will benefit from pre-freezing. I will tell you from my experience, almost every food will benefit more in texture and finished product from pre-freezing. It really helps with boil over. Liquids are a huge one for me. If you're doing a soup or some kind of paste type thing that you're turning into a powder later, pre-freezing is huge. I think it really helps with the overall texture on the completed product. Very high moisture foods are going to benefit this because it's going to help the freeze dryer dry them more evenly and everything's going to be completed more at the same time. super dense foods or thick foods are going to hold their shape better and really give you a nicer looking aesthetic. And because I think pre-freezing is so important, I want to mention some of the products that we have developed since we started freeze drying, from freeze drying supplies that really help with the pre-freeze. We sell lids that will cover your trays, that will keep bacteria from entering the food. It will also keep some spillage from happening from the food. It allows you to have multiple batches of food ready to be freeze dried, so you can always have a freeze dried process happening. And those trays also allow you to stack them, so it keeps your deep freeze nice and organized. You can also use the dividers for that same thing, because once the food is frozen with the dividers in, it automatically makes a portion or a section. You can separate different types of foods if you want to. So I would highly recommend pre-freezing if you have the space, if you have the time to do it, and if you think it's something that's worthwhile for your freeze drying process. Then I would also check out freeze drying supplies and see what products we can offer you to help that whole streamline of the freeze drying process happen. Our last few questions today are all going to tie into each other, and they all deal with food storage, which is another big question that kept coming up in the posts, asking for questions from you, the freeze dryer. The next question is going to be, how do I store freeze-dried food? There's really, in my opinion, only a couple, maybe a few answers. Your best option is going to be Mylar bags. You can use all different types of sizes of Mylar bags. You really want to pay attention to the thickness of the Mylar. I would not go less than 5 mil Mylar. This question also is one of those questions that we can make an entire video on. I do actually have a video on Mylar and food storage, oxygen absorbers, all that stuff. That's very important. There's a lot of side information that you should probably make yourself educated in if you want to get the best results for food storage and longevity. The second best option is going to be mason jars, and mason jars are great because you can see the freeze-dried food and you can actually open them and reseal them very easily, whether you're using an oxygen absorber or you're using some sort of vacuum sealer, a portable one that just goes on top of the mason jar, or if you're using a chamber sealer, or you can also use the freeze dryer itself to do that. I like mason jars for a lot of reasons. There are a few downsides to them. They're probably not going to give you the longevity for storage. The other downside of jars is going to be if you allow light to enter that jar, over the years it will deteriorate the food. And if you've ever seen a jar that has been exposed to even just small amounts of lights for 5 to 6 years or whatever, you'll notice that the food starts to fade in color, and I would imagine the nutrient level and just all aspects of that food probably not as good of quality. Our third option is going to be number 10 cans. I don't have a lot of firsthand experience with that because that's just not something that I'm interested in. I don't want that big amount of food all in one type of container for a lot of reasons, mainly because it's just more vulnerable. So if one little thing happens, you're ruining a large amount of food. I also just don't find a use for big portions like that. I like to be able to use my freeze-dried food in just smaller portions, meals or snacks or things like that. That's just my situation. But that the number 10 can or the larger amounts might appeal to your food storage or your food usage situation. If you are a viewer of this video and you have experience with number 10 cans, definitely leave us a comment down in the comments section, because that's how a lot of people learn, by reading the comments or just people's experiences from you, the freeze dryer. All right, our final two questions go hand in hand with that last question on food storage. Our next question is, what size oxygen absorber do I use for my food storage container? And the answer to this question is not an easy one. I will give you kind of general guidelines of what I go, but this is definitely a food by food basis. It depends a lot on the amount of air volume and oxygen that a particular food can hold. It depends on the amount of available space in the container or jar or bag that you're using. But as a general guideline, for a quart-size Mylar bag, I would use a 300 to 500 cc is perfect. We sell 500 cc oxygen absorbers at Freeze Drying Supplies because I think, to me, that is about the perfect size. It's always going to do the smaller containers or bags, and if you need extra, you just add an additional one. And with that said, it is always better to overdo it than to not have enough. A lot of times an oxygen absorber, even if the container or the bag fails in some sense, if it has a pinhole in it or if your seal breaks or something on the jar, a lot of times an oxygen absorber can hold the amount of oxygen out of that container, even in a compromised state. A lot of times it can fend that off for a year or two, or sometimes even more. The extra oxygen absorber size is always going to be able to keep your food safe for at least a little bit longer. Hopefully in that meantime, you can figure out that there is a problem and repackage it or redo it or consume the food. And our last question today is, can I reuse Mylar bags and can I reuse oxygen absorbers? So for Mylar bags, I can really only speak from my own experience. And it's going to depend on what you're using this food for. If you're using it just for personal consumption, I would say go for it. Use whatever you have in the Mylar bag. Thoroughly cleanse and remove any kind of oils or food particles, anything like that. Get it back to completely sanitary. You're always going to lose at least a little bit of storage capacity because every time you break that seal and have to cut it or tear it, you're losing that amount of every time you have to heat seal, because you have to have room for that heat sealer to be able to close the bag off. So obviously if you're using this in a commercial or resale setting, you're not going to want to reuse the bags for very obvious reasons. I'm sure that you can draw your own conclusions to why you don't want to do that. Let's go to the oxygen absorbers. For oxygen absorbers, unfortunately, you cannot reuse them. Once they've been exposed to oxygen for a certain amount of time, just depending on what size, a lot of times that's anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour to an hour for larger ones. There's no more chemical reaction and they will not remove oxygen from a bag or container anymore, so they need to be discarded. I really hope that you find this Q&A series helpful. If you're a new freeze dryer or if you're an advanced and experienced freeze dryer, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be a new take on what we do on this channel, but really trying to improve the freeze drying community as a whole by educating all freeze dryers, no matter what your experience level is. So I want to give you just a bonus question. How long does freeze dried food last? That can be such an open-ended question, but if done properly, your freeze-dried food should last 20 to 25 years is kind of the baseline. But as we all get better and there's more knowledge, there's more information out there, I think that freeze-dried food can be, I think that we can prove that it can last for much longer than 25 years. But until 25 years of home freeze drying experience passes, we're probably not going to have a definitive answer on that. But geez, can you imagine where we're going to be at in freeze drying by the time that someone can crack open that 25-year-old freeze-dried food bag? In the meantime, this is the freeze drying community. My name is Brian. Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and also check out all of our freeze drying resources. You can find those down in the description of this video. Until next time, happy freeze drying. Hey, you! Are you unlocking your full potential as a freeze dryer? If you're not signed up for the freeze drying community email list, you're missing out on pro freeze drying tips and freeze dryer giveaways, the latest sales, inspirational people in the freeze drying community, as well as invaluable food storage recipes. And most important, unlocking your inner freeze drying guru. Click the first link in the description to get signed up.